yourselves the elite.
If not us, who?
A little bit of the bubbly.
And if not now, when?
We don't care about race or gender or sex or religion. If you're an elite athlete, we want you.
This is an official declaration of war.
Change the world.
We are gonna change the whole universe! This is what you call a paradigm shift.
Will you follow us?
All Elite Wrestling!
For the 28th time, it's Monday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for the next chapter of the only professional wrestling podcast that is changing the world every week. This is Seeing the Elite, an AEW podcast. I am your host, Bryce Reed. I am joined by my friend, my co-host, my tag team partner, Mr. Jonathan Davis.
What's up, dude?
We are just days away from AEW Dynamite's debut episode on TNT, live from the Capital One Arena in our nation's capital, and we are one more week of pre-TV era news to talk about here with all of you.
If you even want to call it a whole week, man.
First, a reminder, at noon Eastern on debut day, October 2nd, our Patreon goes live. We hope that you will contribute. We've prepared a ton of awesome perks and incentives for those of you that want to help us make the show better each and every week, including some really cool stuff for members of our Discord, tinyurl.com/seeing the elite to get your invite to our Discord server. Become part of our STE ring crew. Shout out to the champ, Pumpkin Skull. As always, prepare yourselves. The new age of Seeing the Elite and AEW podcast is coming. This is our last Monday morning for a little while, at least until after Full Gear.
Yeah, we'll have like what, solid 2 months of no Monday shows?
Yeah, from now on, we'll be launching on Friday mornings this week, just like we did with our AEW Dynamite primer that we released this past Friday morning. Great response to that. I hope all of you are enjoying it. I hope it's helping you get into what we're about to see on Wednesday night, which is going to be nothing short of explosive. Not even pun intended. It's not in the script, I swear to God. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Jonathan and I are two friends, fans, lovers of professional wrestling who are here every single Monday morning, one more time.
Ish.
Every single Friday morning with all the latest news from All Elite Wrestling. This is not a sports entertainment show. It's an entertaining sports show supported by fans like you from all over the world on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, podcast services everywhere. Subscribe, review, give us 5 stars just like Meltzer. It makes us feel so sweet. Jonathan, how sweet?
Too sweet, buddy.
Too sweet. Facebook.com/Seeing the Elite. Twitter @Seeing the Elite. As always, JD will be on the time codes if you're looking for something specific. But we're going to start like we always do with a quote. Quote, "We're 8 days out from the most significant night in wrestling in my lifetime. I just wanted to share these thoughts with our incredible fans, whose unbridled passion and support have led us to this moment. This raging fire within wrestling today ignited long before I hit the independent scene. There was the hot ticket and style of PWG, Colt Cabana building a brand for himself without the reliance of a large corporate backer, the narrative pipe bomb promo that spoke heavy truths into our business, the Young Bucks creating a vlog to connect deeper with the fans, and much more. After an 11-year stint at WWE, there was that faithful bet that I couldn't promote a show, which ultimately drew 10,000 plus fans at All In a year ago. My stubborn ability to believe that I could expand my work rate even further and forge powerful connections across the barricade were also driving forces in my life. And, of course, there was Tony Khan, the lifelong wrestling fan who wanted to invest his business acumen, passion, and sphere of influence with 4 guys aspiring to create an alternative product. All of these cumulative factors would still not have gotten us today without the largest and loudest factor of all, pro wrestling fans. This includes the growing number and often shadow market of fans who, for some reason or another, felt disillusioned by the current product and went searching for the alternative that truly spoke to them. My gratitude is extended in anticipation of AEW Dynamite, but even if Wednesday, October 2nd was the first and only AEW show, what has happened now in wrestling cannot be undone. Wrestlers now have a chance for better pay and a healthier schedule, and the doors have been opened to a wrestling show more congruent with the diversity of our current society. This isn't because of AEW, it's because of you, the fans, from Die Hard to brand new. And the changes in wrestling aren't exclusive to AEW. This progress can now permeate all promotions. I would ask you this one favor as we move forward. Speak to me. John Cena once told me that when fans clap their hands or stomp their feet or give a visceral indicator that they want something, you need to do something. Otherwise, they will stop making noise. Please share your feedback with me. I want all of it. Good, bad, ugly, what we did right, what we did wrong, and why. Let me help create and tailor a product for you. In 2015, when I unexpectedly lost my dad, I was very broken. I sought comfort in my friends and family, but what I think helped me the most were the bright lights and ferocious passion of our fans. Perhaps to an outsider, this may sound melodramatic, but it truly fixed me in ways that are impossible to describe. The accusation that pro wrestling is artificial has never fazed me because I know the feeling of a family enjoying a show, that raucous laughter of fans, the collective gasps when we test the limits of our bodies, and the overall escape we provide as an industry. There's nothing artificial about that. It's a damn important service. I've had the best education one could receive for this job. A pro since age 15, 11 years under the learning tree of such minds as Randy Orton, Vince McMahon, Arn Anderson, Dean Malenko, and countless other legends. And of course, the 3 decades I spent talking wrestling every day with the American Dream himself. I know what's on the other side of the hill. A billion-dollar publicly traded behemoth with 70 years of experience and an expansive network of divisions and subsidiaries, which has ultimately become a monopoly in wrestling. Yeah, I'm a bit nervous. I'm a little scared too, but I'm saddling up in DC anyway, along with the best partners and wrestlers on the planet. I'm with AEW because AEW is for everybody, and I hope everybody tunes in and gives us a chance to shine for you. Thank you, Cody Rhodes. When I get done editing that's going to sound great. Man, what to talk about everything that Cody has talked about here would be wild. I just wanted to lay the quote out as it is, really the letter, the open letter as it is. I think the biggest thing here is him really just reiterating that, like, criticism is not something that AEW is afraid of because they know what to do with it.
No, they're happy to take it. They are welcoming it because criticism, and to an extent, is how you grow. That's how you become better. You can't just live in a vacuum of, my shit doesn't stink.
Right.
When you are sitting here and listening to your fans, the people who are essentially paying your salary, saying, "Hey, dude, I really don't like what you guys are doing. Can you do this thing better?"
Mm-hmm.
And you listen to that, then you end up with a better product. Now, to an extent, you can't always just listen to the one guy, and you have to take every bit with a grain of salt. But when you have, 100 people saying, hey, dude, this, as an example, this Dark Order thing is really not working, you can sit back like, okay, we have a majority of people saying they don't like this thing. Let's move on because it's turning people off. When I read this on Monday or Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday because he mentioned going to start the TV roundup of interviews and things. It's very heartwarming. It's very eye-opening and pleasant to read. Not something you see in the wrestling community from the powers that be. And just knowing how, heartfelt he is about this and how much he wants this company to work for the fans, not for his own wallet, it's eye-opening, and it's what needs to happen, not just in wrestling, but in many industries, where you're out for the people, not for yourself and your own personal gain. Now, obviously, he wants this to succeed for himself, but that's not his first goal.
And I think the biggest thing here is looking at this approach. It's the difference of how somebody who truly loves the product they're making acts in comparison to somebody who's just making the product, right?
Yeah.
Because WWE gets criticized all the time, and a lot of what you'll hear from people who work in WWE is, the fucking smarks, what do they know about they don't know nothing about nothing,
Except they do, because that's the people who have been watching this for 20 years and can say, you're fucking up.
You don't have to watched wrestling for 20 years to be like, how come all of a sudden this storyline, the opposite thing happened of what would make fucking sense here?
Yeah,
and I mean, and I don't want to harp on about WWE. I really don't, but it shows the difference in mentality there when you have somebody who would be like, oh, that's how you feel about the product. Thank you for telling me. That's going to help me make the product better because I can see it from your perspective, and like, oh, what the fuck do you know? You've never put on a pair of boots or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
just immediately just starting to criticize the person who's like, hey, I'm not just saying you're an idiot and your shit sucks. I'm saying, hey man, this really doesn't work.
Yeah.
Obviously to the guy who's saying, all of the racist, homophobic, and just generally toxic things.
Yeah.
Obviously, tell him to fuck right off.
You have to consider the source, but
but when you're producing something in a vacuum and you're not trying to improve it because you treat your audience as idiots and that I know better, then you're never going to have a good product. I mean, let's be honest. The reason why WWE has considered and become the juggernaut is because it's operated in a vacuum.
Yeah.
No one's competing with it. Vince will run it until, if it continued to lose money, he would have run it until he ran out of money, and then wrestling would have been gone.
From the mainstream, from having any mainstream option, yeah. Yeah. I really don't know what more to say about that. I'm so excited for what we're going to see in just a few days' time at this point. But I love that he does this whole statement, and it's all about just like, stay with us, and if you don't like something, just tell us, and we'll know, because they'll see it in the minute by minutes, right? But I love that that's the angle, and I don't think, there are a lot of pro wrestling companies and entertainment companies where it's like, oh, it's all about you, the fans, or whatever, right? But
they don't ever really mean it.
The way he's wording this is like, no, legitimately, like, we need you to watch the show. We need you to like things, and we need you to dislike things as much as you like things, and tell us what not to do, so that we can make something that is tailored to everybody's tastes. I think they have a couple of uphill battles to fight, and we'll talk about that certainly next week once we see what they're trying to do.
Sure, I mean, and it's obviously they're going to have those, but it's a good problem to have.
Yeah. You want to know? I guess I'll talk about this here. You want to know what I think the biggest hurdle that they're going to face creatively as far as with the fans goes?
Darby Allin.
I mean, kind of. Darby, I think the biggest hurdle that they're going to face is that the fans think that they want a more violent product,
But they don't.
but they don't really know what a more violent product looks like.
No.
You and I know what a more violent product looks like. Because you and I have watched more violent shows, right? But as evidenced by the chair shot to the head, which we'll talk about briefly later, people are not willing to have that trust in the performers to do something as violent as it was back in the day. And
Which
they're
isn't
so
really as violent as it was back in the day. You had a single chair shot in,
Right.
15 hours of content now? Those used to happen like 3 times an hour.
right, unless it was Brock versus Mankind, right?
Yeah, I mean, even then, like, it wasn't just the one chair shot. Like, it happened,
All
a
the
guy took at least 3.
Yeah, and I think I think Cody is right. I think the vision is correct. I think pro wrestling needs more violence. I think that's what pro wrestling is about, is sort of safely exercising something that is violent, right?
Sure.
But
There's a level of diminishing returns on that, though.
I think I really don't think that there is, to the extent people think there is. But I mean, like, people all over the internet going like, what was it? Last week, the NXT thing, Keith Lee got hit with a Canadian Destroyer from the second rope, and it wasn't the end of the match. And people were like, that should have been the end of the match. It's like, fuck you. They'll end the match when they want to end the match.
It's that kind of thinking that really needs to stop. To be honest with you.
Yeah, it's like, I know when enough is enough or whatever. It's like, what are you... They're telling a story. It's not fucking real.
Well, that whole mentality, it's Meltzer. He's polluted so many people into thinking...
I think it's
like,
more than Meltzer. I think it's deeper than that. I think that whole
Well-
mentality was started by older wrestlers who could not do it and therefore said, that's not how you're supposed to do it.
Right, but Meltzer has perpetuated it to such an extent...
Yeah.
that it's like, oh, it's just a finisher fest, There's nothing any substantial. Like, they should just do one big move and that's it. It's like, no, that's maybe fit 20 years ago, sure, but that's not wrestling.
Yeah, it's kind of boring now.
Understand that wrestling has evolved to the point, like, and these moves, like, some of them are high risk and a little bit too dangerous, but like a Canadian Destroyer. If you know how to do that properly and everyone involved knows how to do that properly, that's not a dangerous move at all.
Yeah.
Now, when you have someone out here who, oh yeah, Scott Steiner, I can do a Canadian Destroyer, and half-asses it because he's never done one before, yeah, that's how people get hurt.
Right.
But
You don't know what the fuck you're doing, right? Yeah, I really think the biggest hurdle for them is trying to forge a new way with a more violent product, because that's something that they can do because they're TV-14, and that's how you provide an alternative, is you make something more violent. I think the backlash they're going to get is from people who were raised on WWE, who have more of an affinity for WWE than they think they do, who think they want a more violent product but don't really understand what that is. And I don't mean to talk down to anybody when I say that, but I think there's going to be a lot of backlash about the show being too violent, and I think they're either going to have to push through that. So I guess what I'm saying is, as he says here in the quote, if you love it, speak to us. If you don't love it, speak to us. The problem with the internet is that people who love it typically shut the fuck up and just watch it, and people who hate it are the ones who are talking about it. So every week, if you really love the product, if you really care about the show, tweet at Cody, tweet at Tony, tweet at everybody and be like, hey, I really loved this show this week. Here's something I really loved about the show this week. Try to be the vocal majority about what you like about the show, if that's how you feel about it. If you don't like it, then of course be the guy who doesn't like it and tweet at them. But if you love the show, talk about it, because that's always the hardest thing on the internet. You'll get 100,000 dudes who are like, that fucking sucked, here's why it sucked, and then you'll get 1 million people who are watching it and loving it and aren't saying a fucking word.
right, and that's always been the case. But it's always like, I watched this, I loved it. I don't need to say anything about it. I loved it, but it's
sure. But make a conscious effort in the future, to do that with things that you love. We have this wonderful opportunity to reach out directly to the people who make the things that we care about.
And tell them, like, hey, dude, this was cool.
This is great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Try to make a conscious effort to do that. And I don't do it myself all the time, but that's really, I think, the big takeaway from this quote. Let's move on to being the elite, number 171, shots to take and girls to date. Cold open in the Bucks home gym where Nick is ready to show Matt something he's been working on. Nick reminds his older brother how he learned to use iMovie so that he could produce BTE every week. Then Nick produces a box and anxiously tells his brother the next big step for their business. Nick has learned Photoshop. Meh. This is great because they won't have to pay artists for merch designs anymore. Matt says, don't you have to go to college for that? And Nick replies, EVPs like us don't go to college. Now, Photoshop, you don't have to go to college for Photoshop. It helps if you can, but you don't.
I will say this. It can help.
Sure.
It's also,
Jonathan Davis, a man who went to college for Photoshop.
Yeah, it's kind of like software engineering. Like, it can really help you, and there's a part of software engineering where you do need a traditional experience to learn like really high level stuff that is needed for the day to day.
Sure.
But for Photoshop, it's really just you will learn more by YouTubing it, because that's
right.
the
Tinkering
real
and YouTubing. How do I do this thing that I want to do?
Yeah, because like in college, they're just going to teach you so many things, like X number, and they will be useful. But like to do like the really cool shit, it's on YouTube because someone did it and made like, hey, this is cool. I wish I'd known how to do this. I'm going to help someone. So that's where that is.
Nick really doesn't want to get ahead of himself, but he's confident that he has created the 2 greatest wrestling shirts of all time. And they're live on ProWrestlingTees.com as they speak. Nick pulls out the first shirt and proudly shows his brother. It's horrible. It's like something you might get from an artist on Fiverr and then refuse to pay for. Matt is supportive of his brother, but visibly upset at how bad the work is. Nick shows Matt the second shirt, and it's somehow actually worse than the first one.
Which is like a little bit unbelievable. It's like, how the fuck, man?
Nick points to the worst one and says that it'll be the best-selling shirt by next week on Pro Wrestling Tees. He guarantees it. It's not, by the way.
No,
the first one is in the top 20. The second one is not the best-selling shirt. Nick socially pressures Matt into taking a picture with the shirt on and then verbally pushes him into saying that he loves the shirt more than once. In a callback to last week, as Nick exits the frame, the camera pans down to reveal that Matt's fingers are crossed.
So fun facts. The shirts on ProWrestlingTees.com are called Graphic Design 101 and Graphic Design 102. They are both also already on sale for $10 off.
I love this scene because it shows that the Bucks aren't communicating with each other. That Nick is doing things without consulting Matt, and that the two of them are outright lying to one another at this point. It will be interesting to see if this becomes a factor in the tournament or what this thread is for exactly. But we've now seen it 2 weeks in a row with Nick saying he wouldn't put that Kenny thing in, and then his fingers were crossed, and he did it anyway, right? Now Nick putting up the shirts without consulting Matt, and then Matt, saying that he loved it and he didn't really love it, right? This sort of they're not being honest with each other. They're not being straight with each other, right?
It is very interesting. It's how they're portraying this, and it's something that could go very, very well, or just a bad storyline. We really won't know until we get a lot closer to it.
Yeah. We then go into the title sequence. The next scene is in SCU's hotel room. CD has pulled together Frankie and Sky because they have received a package from AEW at the hotel with a note stating that it's for October 2nd in DC. CD wants to do a live unboxing. Sky hopes that it's new Kobe's. Inside, at the top is a couple of floppies, a Turok #1, and a Tarzan issue that they didn't tell us the number of. Under that, a weird-looking doll and a plastic velociraptor. All three members of SCU are in disbelief as they put together the pieces, and a laugh track comes in under them. Frankie says that he won't fight Jurassic Express again because Marco freaks him out too much. He believes Marco to be a vengeance-seeking spirit of his childhood Cabbage Patch doll.
That was the greatest line that I've ever heard in my life. Like, what the fuck, man?
SCU resolves that if they beat them once, they can do it again in DC, but they check the box for any other clues, like some spooky perverts or people holding hands. So that's happening. SCU versus Jurassic Express on the premiere. We could have talked about this on our AEW primer, but I honestly just forgot this whole scene happened because I'm a fucking doofus, I guess.
We were looking at the list of matches that were announced, and I remembered seeing it, and I'm like, oh, we were going to talk about that. Fuck. It happens. We were,
Yeah, it slipped my mind. Anyway, next up is an awesome private party scene, staged as though it's a live stream with a lot of chat comments from sort of like funny celebrity comments, right? Beyonce, Mariah Carey, Wesley Snipes, Eminem, Jay-Z, all complimenting private party and asking them, when they got to work together next and stuff like that. I love this scene.
I did too, dude. It was very, very funny. I thought, and I'm so down. I was so down for it. Like, as it started coming up and everything, I was like, oh man, this is great. This is just insanity, man.
I thought it was really clever. Quen's awesome LED shades that just scroll private party in front of his eyes, I think are awesome. All of a sudden, a Young Bucks fan enters the chat and asks, aren't you guys supposed to be getting ready for the Young Bucks? Quen and Cassidy say that they are getting ready, but they don't need to because the Young Bucks aren't hungry anymore. There's a great moment. Marty Scurll enters the chat and says they definitely did change. # all my friends are dead. End quote.
It was so sad, but it was so funny. It's like, oh man, you are having rough times here.
That's gotta be soon, right? I haven't done any research on him.
I've heard his contract is, yes, up soon. But I think Ring of Honor is very heavily going after him to stay. So we'll see.
Good luck.
It's kind of a lost cause because like he's going to leave to go back to his friends.
Well, it's not even that. It's not even to go back to his friends. The ROH would have to pay Marty Scurll more than the company is worth for it to be reasonable for him to continue to stay there.
Yeah, I would believe that. Yeah, I would agree with that 100%.
There's just there's nothing left over. There's
no reason to stay anymore.
Which sucks, but that's how it is. And that's how it's going to continue to be for the mid-level indies. Impact's going to go to.
I don't know about... They may lose a lot of people, but I don't know if they'll be just dying that hard. They've signed a lot of deals.
Quen says there's a new Young Bucks in town, and their name is Private Party. As Cassidy agrees, saying that Private Party is the Young Bucks from 10 years ago. A voice off screen says they got to open the party up in a few minutes. Private Party grabs some champagne. They tell the Young Bucks that they'll see them in Boston. They knock back a celebratory shot before they go off air, just as Cassidy yells, "Woo! We got shots to take and girls to date." Yeah, I love this scene. I thought it totally was the type of thing that they needed to get these two characters over. They are fiercely modern urban characters that feel natural and don't feel like a bunch of old white guys writing parts for like young black dudes, you know what I mean? And
that's what happens when you get to write your own promos.
Yeah. Cut to the Bucks gym with Nick and Cutler and Matt. Matt can't believe that Private Party would say that about him and his brother. They go to Cutler. They say, Brendan, you've known us for 20 years. We haven't changed, have we? And he goes, nope.
No.
Of course, they don't buy it. They immediately ask Cutler how they've changed. Cutler says that the Bucks have made a lot of money. After all, they are standing in a custom home gym in a garage. And maybe the wrestling lately hasn't been as important to them. Cutler then cites the PWI 500, where this is the first year in a long time that the Bucks have saw a notable decline in the rankings. Cutler feels like maybe his friends have lost their killer instinct. He instantly regrets saying this because Matt reacts poorly. Nick and Matt exit in a huff. Cutler looks into the mirror and says, there goes one of my contracts. That was great. We then go on to BTE mailbag. Kenny is back. He has a question from a fan. Actually, it's a question from Matt, which pops up on the screen. It's an iMessage from Matt asking Kenny why he said all the stuff about NXT, which we talked about last week. Kenny replies, "Hello, Matt. What you care, brother? I do next mailbag. No worries, brother."
Oh, man.
And you can see Matt's response underneath is, "No." Kenny goes on to address the camera directly. He says he needs a PR guy. He apologizes to both the fans and the wrestlers for humiliating himself last week, regardless of whether or not he was, quote, in character, end quote. His words were inappropriate and disrespectful. And he says, please accept my apology and we'll see you next week. He closes out the show. He says, oh, I'm BT Mailbag. The screen goes black. The cameraman says, all right, we're good. And the picture comes back up as the camera is set to the side and Kenny is still in view. Kenny now openly shows that he's not remotely sorry for what he says. He says TK is furious due to the damage done. He accuses the wrestlers of creating burner accounts because they're, quote, even bigger marks than the people who fill the seats, end quote. Kenny then goes off on Donovan Dijakovic, an actual NXT talent who really tweeted him in angry response to this interview that he did.
It was kind of amazing, to be honest.
Kenny says he was in character. Dijakovic didn't seem upset that Kenny said bad things about Jon Moxley. Kenny calls everyone who was offended a child, basically, and anyone who said those guys were actually better or more important to the business than him is delusional. Quote, do you know how many Match of the Year awards I have? People in Japan are still trying on a daily basis to be the next Kenny Omega, end quote. Kenny then sees the camera is still on and the segment ends. I love this turn for his character, that this was the response. It's so funny and just pure, and the idea that professional wrestlers would take the jabs Kenny said and try to paint it as like, it's so funny. They'll make jabs at each other until it's about the brands, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, hey man, we're all just trying here. We're all fans of professional wrestling. It's like, what the fuck is this business? All he said was, I'm better than all the talent over there. They should also be saying that.
Yes, that's part of being a wrestler. Like, I'm the best in the world. Fuck you. It doesn't matter if you are the biggest jobber in the world or the actual number one talent on the shows. Like, you need to be that confident that part of this industry.
It's not even just a wrestler thing. It's an entertainment thing.
Yeah, no matter what.
If you're a band, you don't get up on stage and you're like, hey, we're the third best band that's going to play tonight. Yeah, what's up, everybody?
Some of them do, but...
But wrestling especially, like, because I read back that quote, I'm like, there's nothing he says here that doesn't sound like a promo. He literally just says, if we were on the same card, those guys would be in the opening matches and I would be in the closing matches.
Which is true. It's 100% true.
Regardless of whether or not it's true, if you're Donovan Dijakovic, you should say the same exact thing in an interview.
Yeah, the strange thing to me was really just that, like, No, and the other thing is, like, nothing he said was out of line.
No.
He wasn't actually, he was shit talking, but he was respectfully shit talking as wrestlers do. He wasn't just like, you're a piece of shit, you should go kill yourself because I'm going to be better than you forever.
Right. No, it wasn't like that at all. All he was saying is I'm a more notable attraction than these guys, which, whether or not it's true, is an okay thing to say as a wrestler,
Yeah.
right?
It's expected, to be honest with you.
So, but of course, it made a big thing about NXT, and of course, everyone likes to paint themselves as a victim, like, oh, Kenny Omega's mean, we're all trying here, we're all, everybody's trying in professional wrestling or whatever, and it's like, fuck you. Like,
That's
like,
the
come
funniest thing about this to me is, like, this is like a really tame promo from 80s, 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
If someone had, like, actually complained about that promo during, like, the Attitude Era, they would have literally had the shit beaten out of them in the locker room. Because that was a thing back then. Like,
just the idea of, like, it's all not real, right? And he goes off on it, calling all the wrestlers marks, right? And shit like that. Like, he's just trying. The whole point of the business is try to generate more interest for yourself as a performer, right?
Get more heat. It's always about getting more heat.
Right. That's all he's doing, and he's not getting on there and, like, some of the people in WWE going and being like, oh man, that other team, the Revival, for instance, that other team, oh, they're great if all you like from a match is moves or whatever. He's not talking down about anybody's art. All he's saying is, I'm better. I'm better than people or whatever. And now you can't say that anymore because you're going to affect people's feelings or whatever.
The biggest difference here is that he's just not afraid to actually say it and call people out, whereas, like, with, every other company, they are so afraid of saying someone's name.
Yeah.
It's like, just say it. We all know who you're talking about.
I loved his. It was all balls, man. Just like, but like, okay, read the interview. All right, I don't actually want to go to John Moxley's house and kick his ass, which I said in literally the question beforehand. So where are you? What are you doing? You're gonna tweet at me about.
But really, what are you doing?
AEW Dynamite to air on tape delay on the USA's West Coast. Now I'm gonna read this article, which came to us uncredited from WhatCulture.com. I want to say before and after we read this article, this is depending on your provider, and you really need to pay attention to that. How you're getting it. I booted up Hulu. I did Hulu Plus Live TV. I was going to do YouTube TV. Did Hulu Plus Live TV, which is great if that's the way you choose to go to be able to watch the show. I do recommend it because you do get Viceland, and Viceland has Dark Side of the Ring and the wrestlers on it. You can go and watch. The one about Phoenix is heavily featured in one of the episodes of The Wrestlers. Darby Allin is heavily featured in one of the episodes of The Wrestlers. And man, you can see how much of a fucking psycho that guy is. Holy shit.
Those are all on demand through, like, normal Hulu as well, aren't they?
They may be as well. I do not know because I haven't recently had normal Hulu. But you do get normal Hulu rolled in with the Plus Live TV thing. So it's a pretty decent deal if you also want Hulu. And then eventually I think Disney Plus will be rolled into that as well, right?
It won't necessarily be rolled into it, but you can add to your package, as you would HBO or Showtime.
Sure.
I would be very, very surprised if they did not have some sort of package deals in place for Disney Plus, since Disney owns all of those products now. So I'm expecting something there. They just haven't announced it yet because they want everybody to just pre-order Disney Plus standalone, because that's the metric they need.
Why the fuck would you pre-order a streaming service?
Well, they had so during D23 they had a deal where if you
to save money.
Yes, if you pre-ordered for 3 years, you got it for like $100. Fine.
Okay. Their launch lineup looks outrageous.
Yeah, it's already worth it.
The wrestling world, dude. They could put just Cool Runnings on that thing, and it would be worth it. I would pay
$7.99 a month.
$7.99 a month just to have access to fucking Cool Runnings on all my devices.
Just all those like old live action Disney movies that not the Disney Channel exclusives, but like Cool Runnings, Heavyweights, all those. Yeah, I'm in.
The wrestling world is currently. The wrestling world is currently gearing up for Wednesday, October 2nd, when All Elite Wrestling Dynamite debuts on TNT, thus kickstarting the so-called, quote, Wednesday Night Wars, end quote. While we already know that Dynamite will air at 8 p.m. EST in the United States, Jesus Christ, what culture? On the United States East Coast, going head-to-head with WWE NXT, but the question of how the show would be handled on the West Coast remained a mystery until now. Per Wrestling Inc., AEW won't broadcast Dynamite live on the West Coast, but will instead go out on a tape delay. Though DirecTV will be airing the East Coast feed live across the country. In addition, TV listings on Colorado currently have the show airing at 8 p.m. EST, 9 p.m. Mountain Time. Would that not be the case?
That doesn't work.
Yeah. In addition, in other AEW Dynamite news, PW Insider are reporting that TNT will air a replay of the first episode at 10 a.m. EST on Saturday, the 5th of October. There's no word on whether or not this will become a regular occurrence, and British fans are still waiting for an announcement on UK television and AEW still to confirm the long-rumored ITV4 deal, which we'll talk about next.
So here's the deal. Like especially with the replays, there's the replays on TNT have already been announced. I believe there's going to be a replay on True TV, because if you aren't familiar with Turner networks, this is terrible to say. They are very incestuous, and they have no problems airing replays all the time.
It's called corporate synergy, man.
Well, the best example is Impractical Jokers. Very rarely will you have a time frame where you cannot watch Impractical Jokers either on True TV or any other network within an hour of the current time. It's
you're not kidding. I was flipping through channels on Hulu Plus Live TV last night, and I was like, wow, 3 of these channels have Impractical Jokers on right now.
So they do that all the time. As for the tape delay thing, that's how TV works.
Right.
Every wrestling product has always aired via tape delay like this. It's called East Coast feeds and West Coast feeds.
Well, I was under the impression for a while WWE would do live and then would run a delay.
So it's the same thing. Like on the East Coast feed, it is live.
Right.
If you only have access to the West Coast feed, which is most cable providers, unless you have satellite TV, then yes, you are watching it via tape delay. That's just the way TV works. There's very few things where something starts airing live at 8 p.m. and people start watching it at 5 p.m. on the West Coast because that's what time it is. So they're not going to say... With the exception
of pay-per-view, right?
Pay-per-view or like the Emmy, something like that.
Right.
Where it's... Because that's just how things work. They aren't expecting people to be home at 5 p.m. to watch this live because of a time change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not shocking that it's being handled this way. It's unfortunate if you live on the West Coast, but that's one of a dozen things that are kind of unfortunate about being on the West Coast. So.
The flip side of it is, like, if you really care, just be careful on Twitter and shit.
Yeah. Or get a provider that will also give you the East Coast feed, because I think there's a couple of channels on that Hulu package that have the East and the West Coast, which is really weird. Like Cartoon Network has East and West Coast on there, and I'm like, fucking why? Who cares?
Because the Hulu is treating themselves as a satellite provider. Because like when I was a kid, we've had DirecTV for a couple times, but when I was a kid, we had that, and you had like Cartoon Network East and West, and Disney Channel had it the same way. So like, for me, it was great when I was on summer vacation, because if I missed like something I was watching, like cartoons or something, Okay, I just waited 3 hours and I just watched it.
Right.
So it was great when I was a kid. Now it doesn't really affect me that much because, I don't stay up that late. But
on the flip side, this is great for people who are worried about getting home from work in time to watch the show or whatever. I mean, everybody's DVRing now, so it's not really a big fucking deal. But
with typical TV shows, like say Modern Family, like this is how it's aired.
Sure. You just you just stay away from the internet for 3 hours if you can,
Or if it's something really, most times it's not really even staying away from the internet. It's like I'm driving home.
Yeah. That time of day, for sure. All Elite Wrestling UK TV deal. British fans left angry after AEW's ITV deal is announced. By Alex McCarthy for TalkSport.com. At the time of writing, All Elite Wrestling are just 6 days away from debuting their weekly TV show, and yet it seems like they've only really sorted out their distribution deal in the United States. After news dropped yesterday on how they plan to let fans watch AEW Dynamite internationally. At StarCast around 1 month ago, Cody Rhodes was quoted saying AEW had a better TV deal than WWE in the UK. Quote, way better, end quote, were his exact words. This is a note from me here. Tony Khan has also said that in the past in various interviews. So, to continue, yesterday it emerged that ITV4 will show Dynamite 4 days later on Sunday mornings at 8:20 a.m., except for pay-per-view weeks where Tony Khan says that they will make the program available before the Saturday show. A few hours later, Khan said that you can watch Dynamite live internationally if you pay $4.99 monthly to Fight TV. As you can imagine, going from airing on free TV to paying a subscription isn't something that fans wanted to hear a week from the company's weekly TV debut. When you put it into context, all fans pay to watch WWE in the UK by paying for Sky and, as of January, BT Sport. Had AEW made this clear from the start, fans may have reacted to the news a little bit better, but it's still a fair deal for a product that fans can get excited about. I want to read Tony Khan's tweet before we talk about this. Tony Khan tweeted, AEW Dynamite episodes will stream live in the UK on Fight TV for $4.99 per month subscription or $2.99 per episode. We can't broadcast live free to the air in the UK due to different ad break schedules than in the US. ITV plus ITV4 will show free-to-air replays, making our show available to most UK fans. So basically the reason why this is happening is you can't show the US commercials on ITV4 because ITV4 will not get money from those commercials, and then also you have intellectual property rights issues with that as well.
That's part of it.
On top of that, they can't leave those episodes blank because ITV4's commercial infrastructure functions fundamentally in a different way. So they couldn't just have those blank spots and then, hey, fill these with your commercials instead. And so ITV4 is like, yo, if we do this live, we basically can't make any money off of it, so we're not going to do it live. Mm-hmm. That's unfortunate. When it comes to the Fight deal, Fight.tv has unlimited lifetime replays of everything they've ever uploaded. If you get the subscription for $4.99 a month, I think what needs to be put into perspective for UK fans, before I say cry me a fucking river, is...
well, number one, you're getting a better deal.
You're getting a better deal than the rest of the world, by which I mean America, because in America, cable television is not free. The service that I pay for, Hulu plus Live TV, is like $44 a month that I have to pay to watch the show. $5 a month to get the episodes on Fight is a fucking unbelievable deal. That's a great deal.
Yeah, it really is. And like
to watch them live and then get replays as well.
Yeah,
that's an awesome deal.
It really is. And let's putting it into perspective. ITV4, yes, it's 4 days later. That is a public local channel everyone in the UK has.
Yeah.
TNT is basic cable. It means by default you have to pay for it. There is a barrier to entry, and there is no service where you will be paying under, I think, like $20. Maybe Sling, but I think
the cheapest I saw was Sling, which was at $15, but that was an introductory price. After 1 month, it went up to $25.
yeah. So let's say 25. As our $25 is the absolute cheapest way to watch TNT, the one channel in the U.S. That's it.
There's we don't have the Fight Pass over here because they have a TV deal.
Right. So if you're paying a fifth of the price to watch live with unlimited replays, it's still a better deal than WWE, because WWE is on paid channels on cable in the UK, like in the US. So $5. Bryce and I are paying around $50.
Now, and it's like, I understand.
There's other benefits with this.
Sure, you get other shows if you really care about other shows, but like if the difference was pay $44, like for me personally, pay $44 and also get to DVR Ancient Aliens. You know, I like Ancient Aliens, but I don't really give that much.
You love that one guy, don't you?
But if that's or pay $5 a month and just get the one show that you fucking want to watch, I would just pay that.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I got Hulu is because it had other benefits of, there's a lot of, I have Hulu anyways, but if I could have just added a $5 subscription to my Hulu subscription, I would have done that.
Yeah. And now I understand being upset with the bait and switch. People, for some reason, thought that it was going to be live on ITV4. I understand that their wording was ambiguous. They made it kind of seem like that's how it was going to be.
And I'm sure that's what they hoped it would be. But like with the commercial thing of how that's working in the UK, it's not just that they wouldn't make any money. It's that UK TV shows run commercials at different time intervals. Mm-hmm. A typical US TV show, especially a live one, will run a commercial every 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
They don't do that in the UK.
Right.
They don't run as many commercials as the US does. And when they do run commercials, it's for a longer period of time. So you can't just say, oh, well, just match what we have. Well, they can't.
Yeah. And
they're not
otherwise,
going
they
to.
have big black spots in the middle of the show, which they don't want.
Right.
And can't really have. So, yeah, it would be a nightmare to try and do that. I mean, it wouldn't even be if it was a nightmare, they'd try to do it if they thought there was money in it.
Well,
they physically do not believe that they can do it.
It's possible, but there's no benefit in it being, if it was like the NFL, they would probably do it. That's what I mean.
I mean, I guess if the NFL was popular.
I'm saying it like as an easy example. You have to be absolutely massive juggernaut kind of product for them to cave and change their entire ad structure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would assume that's why WWE was on Sky forever, right? Because Sky doesn't need commercials.
Right, because it's also a cable provider. Or a cable network, yeah.
Right. So yes, I understand why that's upsetting, because they, from all indications, without thinking about it, it did seem like that's what they were going to do. It's not what they're doing, but you're still getting really the best deal out of anybody for this stuff. And it looks like this is available not only in the UK, but it's available in Australia. It's available pretty much everywhere internationally.
Yeah, a lot of our international friends were super stoked about it. You and I were like, fuck.
Just adding it to my list of reasons to move out of this fucking country.
I thought, I tried, I looked at it, I was like, hey, I already have a VPN anyways. Can I do this? And it just wouldn't work out. I was sad. I was real sad because I was going to do it.
Worth watching this week, Wrestlers on the Road ordering room service was with Joey Ryan and Fat Ass Massa. It's not worth covering here, but go watch it if you have the time. It's a good episode. There's some great stories.
We probably won't be really covering the room service show because...
No, we'll talk about it, but it's not... It's not in canon or anything. It's like it's a shoot interview series. So.
Oh yeah, and we're not going to do justice to these stories.
Yeah. Also, go watch Cody and Brandy's interview with Collider Live. In it, Cody and Brandy talk about many things, but I just wanted to pull a quote that I really liked that Cody gave in regards to this infamous chair shot at Fyter Fest, and more about what I was talking about earlier when it comes to violence in wrestling. Quote, "I was totally okay in doing it, and here's why. Captain America is hitting people in the head with his shield, and no one is screaming concussion. No one is screaming CTE. No one is making any of these references. If you're going to hold us to a certain standard at this point in 2019, if we're talking to you as part of an entertainment brand, then you can't hold us to an older standard, if that makes sense. I wanted to take wrestling chair shots back for wrestling. However, I don't think it was a success." And I think that maybe that was the last headshot in AEW with a chair.
I don't think it was a success, but I also don't. No one was planning for him to get cut like that.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that was just a mistake on this first one. Because if you go back and watch that, the part that hits his head, the chair seat, does fold like a fucking cookie sheet. So they did do something to that chair to make it okay for him to take it on the chair.
It probably was a cookie sheet, to be honest with you. And that it really is. If he had not gotten cut that way, we would not be seeing the outrage. We would be, but not to this extent.
I think it just comes down to people need to know that they're trying to make wrestling kind of more violent again, which is what people have been asking for. Although, again, I don't think they know what they're asking for. And to trust that these are performers who are taking care of themselves rather than kind of take it into our own hands to decide what is and isn't good for them. Now, I understand that's hard when you have seen so many wrestlers in your lifetime die super early from things that were clearly brought onto them in the ring, back when the ring was super hard and they'd bleed all over each other and the matches were crazy, But I think we need to, as an audience, have trust that they are going to take care of themselves. And if they don't, that's unfortunate. But painting the wrestlers as some victim, the fans force them to go and do these crazy things. There are lots of wrestlers who don't do crazy things and are over as fuck. So I think there just needs to be a trust there on the fan side to not, when somebody gets hit in the head with the chair, be like, "Oh, they were okay with doing that." Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's not going to be there. The chair thing went wrong, and so now chair shots are probably going to be out for a long time. But wrestling's violent and it's dangerous, and there are inherent dangers there. But these guys,
they understand that. They know that. They were trained to do this stuff.
Right. And as we've said before, you can't be a fan of this sport and then when it gets inconvenient to be a fan of this sport because of the things you're supporting, be like, "Oh, well, I'm not that kind of wrestling fan. I don't support that kind of stuff." It's like, well, it's all kind of fucking dangerous, dude. People get concussions off of drop kicks and shit.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't matter what's hitting you in the head. You're getting hit in the head.
or whatever. I mean, Jesus, Perro Aguayo Jr., right?
Freak accident.
Going white. He gets hit with a drop kick in the back and fucking died.
Tyson Kidd.
Yeah.
Hit a move they've done 100 times. He landed.
Muscle Buster. Muscle Buster's been done to 1,000 people.
He landed literally an inch wrong and ended his career.
And he didn't get hit in the head with a chair.
No. One more thing to watch. I'd say watch Cody's interview on the Rich Eisen show.
Yeah, it's fine. It's mostly about Star Trek and being married and shit.
For a different aspect of Cody that's not really wrestling, it's a really good interview.
Yeah, it is good. I did enjoy it. The road to AEW on TNT. No.
Also, whenever it gets uploaded, watch the Critical Role thing with Brandon Cutler and Luchasaurus. Is it Critical Role or is it? I thought it was Geeks and Sundry. I think it was Critical Role. Let me check. I think it's Geek and Sundry. Let me check because Critical Role used to be on Geeks and Sundry. Oh. Either way, go watch it. The VOD is currently not up yet, but it's bound to be a lot of fun and an interesting thing. Yes.
Yeah, they apparently... It's on Critical Role?
It will be.
They apparently did a custom campaign that like mixed AEW with D&D, and apparently at some point Cutler role-played as MJF. So I'm sure that's super entertaining.
That's got to be amazing.
Luchasaurus and Cutler on whatever show it was. They had pushed it as Geek and Sundry, but maybe it's on.
I'm checking. Oh, it is on the Geeks and Sundry page. It was with a lot of the Critical Role guys.
Okay.
On YouTube, it's not up yet. I'm checking Twitch very quickly to see if the VOD's up.
We can't fucking watch it now.
No, but if people want to watch it, they can. I don't see it yet though.
It'll go up.
Yeah,
probably.
it's like if you're a subscriber to their channel, you can probably watch it now. But for everybody else, it'll take a day or two.
The Road to AEW on TNT number 4. Interesting that they haven't changed the title of this. This episode opens with a profile on Brandon Cutler.
Kind of prefer
his opening,
the name, but yeah.
What?
I prefer the name to be The Road to AEW on TNT.
Rather than Dynamite.
Oh, it it fits better.
Yeah. His opening lines in this and the lion's share of this content is about his relationship with Matt and Nick. And it's totally fine, but I wish there was more to this story because it's beginning to feel like the same story over
Because
and
it
over
is the
again.
same story.
Yeah, and I think it's weird for his character to be offended that he's called a cabana boy if he's given an opportunity to talk about himself, and his first line is, I first met Matt and Nick. Yeah. You know, like, well, okay, fucking talk about yourself then and not them all the time. It kind of seems like they think the most important thing about Brandon Cutler is who he's friends with. And I think that's unfortunate that continues to be the first fucking thing that he talks about. And Cutler tells us he first met Matt and Nick when he was 12 years old. He was drawn to being friends with them because they were the only kids in his neighborhood with a professional wrestling ring in their backyard. Which is understandable.
It's the same story we've heard.
You ever just been friends with somebody because they have a hot tub? Because I have.
Yeah, I have to. I don't know if we should really reiterate this. We've talked about this numerous times now.
There are things I want to talk about in this,
but
though.
like for the most part, like people know this story because, like you said, that's all. Yeah.
They've stated it several times. Cutler says the most important thing to him, more important than wrestling, was to have a family always, so that's why he stepped away. We then get an interview with Denise for the first time, Cutler's wife, and she seems awesome. She talks about asking him many times if he really wanted to step away from the ring. She'd met him after seeing him in a wrestling video, and she wouldn't think of her own hobbies and to step away from them, you know, and she shouldn't have to either give up something that she loved to be with somebody. And I think that's a really beautiful sentiment because, like, a family is a team, and you're supposed to help each other do what makes you happy, you know. So I think the story between Denise and Cutler is honestly more interesting than the story between Cutler and the Bucks, but maybe that's just because it's a new story.
It's new, yeah. It's not what you've heard 6 times already.
You're right. They re-show the contract signing, right? They go through it. There's a touching moment with Denise breaking down because she was finally able to move her children into a better house. Cutler says that if MJF wants to call him a favor to the Young Bucks, he could just as easily call MJF a favor to Cody, but he'd rather not take it there. He'd rather prove what he is in the ring. And that's sort of the end of the segment. Yeah, again, just a repeat on this fucking story over and over.
Really wouldn't say the MJF thing is a favor to Cody because even if they didn't pair them up him with Cody, he'd still be here.
Yeah, he definitely still.
Yeah.
He's that would be a very difficult line to walk, and it's nothing against Cutler, but like
that's like saying
MJF would be a signing regardless.
Yeah, it's like saying Adam Page is only here because he's friends with Kenny. Like, no,
Yeah, no, he still would have
Yeah.
decided. We then move into the control center. Tony Schiavone re-announces the show's title and then runs us through some of the card. Cody versus Sammy, MJF versus Cutler, women's title, main event, everything except for SCU versus Jurassic Express, which is left off of this, which is weird because this came after, so maybe...
Possibly recorded before, but yes.
Yeah. Schiavone then announces Hangman versus Pac for DC as well, which we did actually catch in our primer episode, thanks to JD. All him, not me. Forgetting all these fucking matches. Now we get a piece about the women's title match. They show the clip of Kenny talking about the Joshi once again. Like, a lot of this episode was like, all right, you've shown us this already several times. Then a clip of Riho from a few weeks back when they did her spotlight, and then we finally get some new footage of Nyla. Nyla states that while Riho has been fighting or has been wrestling since she was 9 years old, Nyla has been fighting since she was 9 years old, fighting poverty, fighting society so that she could be herself. And I love Nyla, and I don't mean to diminish her struggles, but I think this promo idea kind of sucks.
I do as well, because it comes across as very, I don't even know the word. It was just not very, a way you couldn't connect to it because you're comparing yourself to a tiny girl and how you have this almost the same struggles, where your struggles are very, very different, and you should be talking about that entirely, not trying to compare yourself to her.
Well, it's like changing the subject to a non sequitur. It's like, so what if Brock Lesnar can lift more weight? I lost a parent at a young age, and that's true strength. It's like, well, that's kind of true, but like changing the literal discussion to a figurative one is like, okay, that's not really what we're talking about.
Yeah,
at all.
It's very strange.
It's a completely different thing. It would have made a lot more sense for Nyla to bring up, her significant mass advantage or her significant height advantage. Like either of these things would have made a lot more sense than being like, yeah, she has a lot of experience in the ring, but I was poor growing up, and it's like, well, okay.
What does that have to do with anything?
Right. Like, I understand that's hard. Like, we've all had struggles. Like, and that's another reason I didn't like it is it pretty much pointed out by the editing here too, is it makes it look as though Nyla feels like she's the only person who's ever been marginalized out of the two of them, right? Like, Nyla says, I'm black, I'm native, I'm trans, just as they cut to Riho talking about how her size has always been a problem for her. And they both have struggles, and while I understand that figurative struggle is really important in wrestling, I think the focus here is way too much on pitting those two experiences against one another. You know what I mean? Like, what's harder, being a small girl or being black and trans and native, which obviously Nyla. I think it's a really weird idea. Finally, near the end, Nyla eventually circles back around to her more obvious physical advantages over her opponent, which would have just been so much better from the beginning if she's like, yeah, she's been doing it forever, but like, I'm fucking 3 times her size. So, Nyla wants to be the first women's champion because, in her own words, there can never be another first. Which is true. It's also what the fucking best friend said like 3 weeks ago or whatever.
Yeah, it really kind of diminishes that a little bit, man. Just being honest.
And I think Nyla is a great promo. I think the idea of trying to take the literal and turn it figurative is like, that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, this one just wasn't great. That's the only way I can really say it. It just, this one, oh well, let's move on.
Now Schiavone welcomes Conrad Thompson to the control center to give his pick for TV1's matches. As we talked about earlier, where Cody said, hey, tell us when we're doing something you don't like. Hey, please give us less of this content.
Don't involve Conrad in your content at all.
I understand. I'm not going to be on here and be like, who gives a shit what Conrad thinks? Because that's a difficult bridge for me to walk on, because who gives a shit what I think?
No, that's my job.
But What I will say is, if I wanted to know what Conrad Thompson thinks is going to happen in these matches, I could go out and seek that out in Conrad's content.
I would listen.
I think putting something like this awkwardly in between like scenes that are helping to further the stories it just felt like a big waste of time.
There was a Ric Flair podcast that was really great, except for Conrad talking the entire time. He's now created a new podcast with Arn Anderson that would be great to listen to, except I want to listen to Arn Anderson, not Conrad talk for 30 minutes.
He does strike me as kind of a
he wants to
like
be
one of
so
those
involved.
WWE super fans who wears the same clothes to every show. You know what I mean? Who like thinks that they're like why people come and they're not at all.
Because he is he is that guy. He is that super fan that he thinks he is so involved and so in touch with everything in the business, and it's because like you keep inserting yourself. No one really is asking you to be here.
Sure, rational distaste for Conrad Thompson aside, I really don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Tony Schiavone himself making these picks or whatever. I know
care
what the matches are. Tell me about the matches using the story content. I don't need to have somebody run over the matches again. It's just not helpful for me in the show. It's not what I come to this show for. If you want to do Control Center as its own show, okay, that's cool. Won't watch it because it sucks.
Or if it was something where you're running over the matches because they had something new had been announced.
Yeah. All right. But I think putting if Control Center is going to be like this, putting it awkwardly in between these really awesome pro shot documentary scenes is a really weird pairing.
Where you're on this really bad green screen.
Yeah. I don't think it's working, and I want to say that. I know
in previous weeks it really has, because they haven't done this.
Or it's just been an excuse to put an MJF promo on the screen,
right?
Or whatever. Right?
It's a way to continue, a bridge. I can't remember the word. It's just a transitionary state that allows you to do a thing because you didn't have a good transition.
Right.
Segue. It's good for segues. That's what I was looking for.
Schiavone does confirm that TV1 will be JR, Excalibur, and Schiavone on the desk.
Cool.
Which is cool. Okay.
I don't think it's going to be... I think it's going to be a rotating panel.
Yeah, it'll be whoever they can get in.
I'm pretty sure the anchor will be Excalibur.
Good. Then Cody cuts a promo, man. He says, we should be talking about Sammy Guevara, but let's take a detour. Let's talk about Chris Jericho. World Champion Chris Jericho. He has earned that distinction. It's not unlike Madam Ambassador or Mr. President. He is the best wrestler in the world, so he is the world champion. If you take a deep dive on Chris's storied career and you look at the style and how he used to compete and how it stacks up to how he is now as a competitor, they stand in complete disparity. It's a real mark of how great a wrestler Chris has always been. I'll give you a prime example, the Judas Effect. Everyone who works on this show, everyone in this room laughed when we saw a video promoting the Judas Effect. But then I watched it knock out not one, but two of the best wrestlers in the world. Two of my closest friends. So nobody's laughing now. That is genuine stopping power. Chris Jericho is still dangerous. So wouldn't that have been enough? Myself coming off the two biggest wins of my career, entering the prime of my career at the beginning of AEW versus the world champion, Chris Jericho. November 9th, Full Gear, Baltimore, Maryland, Royal Farms Arena. That should have been enough. But Chris did what his lot often does. He wanted to, quote, escalate the scenario, end quote. He called my dad a son of a bitch. Who's that for? Is that heat? Are you getting heat on a dead man? Is this Memphis? No, if it's heat on anybody, it's heat on me, because people would assume that I would corroborate with such a nonsensical and carny statement, and I would never. You want to know what else it is? It's lazy. Chris Jericho is one of the greatest interview men in the history of pro wrestling. One of the greatest promos. It's the equivalent of Elvis Presley saying, "Guess what, guys? I'm back from the dead, and I got a new song, and it's me farting into the microphone for 30 minutes, end quote. Come on. You should do better, Chris. So let's cut the bells and whistles. We obviously don't need them. November 9th, you're not wrestling my dad. You're wrestling me, and I'm the son of a bitch. I know it's your birthday. I know you're going to have that human hat rack fly-by-night agent along with you. I want him to be ready to powder your baby ass for when I am done with you. You are convinced that the revolution is happening because of you. The revolution was happening with or without you. And once again, I am here saying to you, guess what, Chris? Thank you for being a part of it. But I'll see you in Baltimore. And do me a favor, don't forget the belt. Again.
Shot.
Oh,
Such
man.
a shot. So my question, do we know who this agent is? Is that a new thing?
This is the first time the agent has been mentioned.
Okay.
It's hard to tell if this is something they're bringing in that's real life shit
Or just because
not,
they're salty about it, which is fair.
or if they're planting seeds.
It could be. Yeah, that's also fair. I really enjoyed the promo. The Carney statement and was like, okay, then, dude, what the fuck are you doing with Conrad? But, you know, it is what it is. I'm good with it. I like it. I think it's a good way to continue to do heat and get heat on everybody. It's a good promo to build and puts a lot more stakes on this match that Cody has with Sammy because, you know, he loses, he's out. So this promo loses a lot of meaning. I don't think Cody's going to lose because of this promo.
It's not even that. What it did is it, like, you can tell that Cody's really fucking pissed off during this promo.
Mm-hmm. I think he channeled a lot of the actual real life anger he had of Jericho losing the fucking belt like an idiot.
I think the only thing that bringing up Cody's dad did is it gave Cody a real, like, he's like, wouldn't it have been enough? But it's like, but it was all professional courtesy at that point. Oh, you want to see this? You want to see this? Now he has a legitimate emotional reason to beat Sammy Guevara because he wants to kick Jericho's ass, right? So I think that's the point here, is to show how much bringing up his dad upset him so that they can work it into the story of the Sammy Guevara match, so that he has to beat Sammy Guevara because now it's about the title and it's also about shutting Jericho up, which is kind of basic, like, wrestling 101 stuff, but I think it's really cleverly done here.
It is, absolutely. So,
but a masterful promo from him. I thought it was really great. And again, it's classic because he's generating heat between the both of them, but he's completely complimentary of Jericho throughout all of it.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, that's been Cody's promo style since he's left WWE, because
well, that's what you're supposed to do.
It is what you're supposed to do.
You're supposed to make the other guy look good so that when you beat him, you look good.
But it's that, as well as just like, he's not just sitting here and saying like, yeah, I'm better than you for these 15 reasons. And I think it's a little bit of Dusty. It's also a little bit of just Southern manners that, yes, I am saying I am better than you and I can beat you, but you're such a good opponent, but I think I can beat you, and it makes me look better that I did beat you. So
right, that's the classic wrestling logic behind it. Because if you say you suck, you're a jabroni, you go out and beat him, then it's like, congratulations, you beat a jabroni.
Right.
If you go out there and say, hey, you're one of the best wrestlers in the world, but I'm better, and then you go out and you beat him, then you beat one of the best wrestlers in the world, right? Like, you kind of have control over how your opponent is perceived. So, make your opponent look good if you're going to go and pin him in the fucking ring.
It's also something that a lot of modern wrestlers don't understand. And that's where I mean that it comes from a lot of...
Well, to be fair, a lot of modern wrestlers don't get to choose what they say.
Yeah, well, yes and no. Some of them do. And I'm not just speaking of WWE. I'm talking about Impact and a lot of those other places where they are writing their own.
Sure,
promos.
you could argue MJF doesn't make his opponents look good.
Right, but that's his style. That's what he's doing. But there's a lot of wrestlers now, and not just wrestlers, a lot of people who do not understand the manners anymore. It's turning into a lost art.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Exactly.
Bitch.
Yeah. But it really is. It's not a thing you really see as much anymore. It's not something you hear, like, you don't hear people being complimentary to each other. And, like, think about, like, fucking the interviews that are given in the NFL after a football game. They are not complimenting, like, man, they were a good team. That was a good game. We had a lot of fun. It's like, no, fuck those guys. We're better than them every day of the week because they're pieces of shit. It's like, okay.
Well, sure, but at the same time, like, the area in which manners can exist within entertainment is very small.
It is, but my purpose.
Everyone goes sportsmanship, but sportsmanship's not really super fun to watch on television.
Sportsmanship is fine in an interview.
Yeah, I guess I agree with you to a certain extent. But like,
it's all the way
in the reality television age, it's very difficult to be like, I'm the polite guy, because the polite guy
he's getting
gets
shit
the
on.
Channel changed on him.
Yeah,
so.
and it's like, you can, the way, like, some of my old coaches used to tell me of this stuff is like, make yourself known on the field of why you're better.
Right.
You don't need to shit talk and make someone feel bad and look like an asshole if you can embarrass them on the field.
Yeah. But what if you can do both?
Then you just look like an asshole, which is, every football player now.
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, and it's fair enough. It's agreed. But it's like, do it the smart way. And this is what Cody's doing. He's doing it okay, he's great. He's a legend, absolutely. I'm better.
Yeah. And then at the end, he makes fun of him for being an old idiot.
Well, yeah, and that's some of the anger that is rightly justified. Like, you lost the goddamn championship belt. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, there's really no excuse for shit like that. I'm still confused. Like, why did you not just take it home and then go get dinner?
Why did you leave it on top of the car and drive away? YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, podcast services everywhere. Subscribe, review, give us 5 stars, just like Meltzer. It makes us feel so sweet. Jonathan, how sweet?
Too sweet.
Too sweet. Oh, man, thank you so much for joining us on this journey for the last few months. We're heading into TV. We're heading into a new era for this show. The format's going to change. We're going to go from talking about, like, 30 minutes of content to a week to talking about, like, 2 hours and 30 minutes of content a week. So anyone sort of expecting this, the way that we break down BTE is going to be the way that we break down the fucking show, not going to happen.
Well, we also don't know how long BTE is going to stay around.
Sure. Not going to be that detailed. We are going to talk, I'm going to watch the show, and when
we'll have notes.
When the segment, I'll have notes, right? But the format's going to fundamentally change. Now, BTE I'll probably put the same level into noting out BTE and Road 2. That'll probably all be there. If Road 2 continues to be released before Thursday, and it's not like,
yeah.
But their content's going to change, and our content's going to change because we've just gotten or at least an hour and 40, whatever it is, without commercials, of extra content, actual wrestling content to talk about. So it's going to change. Also, moving to Fridays. Also, Patreon launching on debut day. Things are going to be different around here, but I really think it's going to be an awesome time for this show, and I thank you so much for joining us in these before times. And now it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, and like that's all. One of the other big things, like, since we're moving days, we're not going to have a lot of time to really prep the show because we're recording the next day, so like a lot of our prep for at least the TV content is gonna be, it'll be there, but it's not gonna be very, very detailed.
Right. This show has always had the benefit of being prepped. As people who get on certain Patreon tiers will learn, each one of these shows has had between like 7 and 30 pages of fucking notes. And it's been of service to us, but the show's going to happen on Wednesday nights. We're going to record on Thursday night. It's going to be up Friday morning. There's not going to be all that prep time for me, and I don't think the show would benefit from having that either.
No, it really wouldn't. Like we
learned with the pay-per-views, because we did it once with Double or Nothing, and
it kind of bit us in the ass.
Yeah, because it was literally me doing like 12 hours of writing this fucking script, and then we did it, and I was like, I don't know that show was better than it would be if I had just been like, what did you think about this match? And it would be
no, because like you spent so much time on the notes just for the pay-per-view. I was grabbing articles and stuff. We didn't really get to give anything. It's just, it's due from that. And by the end of the show, as we were getting towards the matches that we really wanted to talk about, we were so burned out, and it was like, we got to end it. Let's end it.
Jonathan and I will always try to make this show as informative and useful and entertaining for you guys as possible. I think we're going to have no problem doing that. I just hope that there's an understanding on the fans' part that we are moving and transitioning into a new format, that the format's going to change, and that when we get there, it's going to be everything in the interest of producing the best show that we can for you guys. Because obviously, when it comes to like the time I put into the show, I don't care, because I could do the show a whole lot more slapdash and get it done, but I don't. The shows are a lot of work goes into pre-production and post-production on this show. So,
and like just with our schedules and our lives, like that we're doing as much as we can for TV.
Yeah, but I'm excited about what we're going to be able to do for TV. But the new stuff is going to stay when we have news. The auxiliary stuff is going to stay because I understand that's going to be important to people. People are going to watch the weekly show. We're going to talk about the weekly show. I think what's going to be even more important is that we're going out and getting these things from the other parts of the internet and being like, oh, also this is important, and also this is important.
Yeah, that's an aspect where I don't think a lot of other shows are really doing, because they're really just talking about the wrestling itself, and that's what we pride ourselves on, that we're talking about the product as a whole.
Yeah. But we couldn't do any of it without you guys, and we thank you so much. It's been an unbelievable journey so far. It's only going to get better from here. Facebook.com/Seeing the Elite. Twitter @SeeingTheElite with no G. Get at us on Twitter. Lots of fun on Twitter this week. But where the real action's happening, tinyurl.com/Seeing the Elite. Our close inner squared circle, if you will, our ring crew over there, just having a blast every week. Just great friends talking about AEW and whatever else is going on in our lives every week. Harry had a baby this week.
Yeah, congrats to Harry. That's great news.
Congrats to Harry. And a shout out to the champ, Pumpkin Skull, of course. And
no, fuck that guy.
Hey, this is what he gets, man. This is what he gets.
Trying to be a fucking heel.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back very, very soon. In less than a week with another episode of Seeing the Elite. Go out and change the world.